Hi. It's time we start talking about those games and doing some simple game programming. Now I'm calling this one Space, and I preset all the code in here that we're going to need. And what I'm going to do is just basically go through that code and show you how this works and how it's set up, and give you some of the logic behind what's working here. The first thing I want to call your attention to, however, is actually the design. So let's go to the design for a moment here, and we're going to take a look at this screen. Now, all I have set for my Space project, Space 1 I'm calling it, is, and you can just call it Space, because what we'll do is we'll just add on to this. I will probably make different ones, and we'll just add on to this. I'm having trouble with my microphone here. Give me a second. It's going to work like this. Okay, let's see if that works. All right. I'm going to go through this. Basically, this is a picture, okay? Basically a picture. And this picture that we're doing here is, I set the background to black. Now, you could actually set a picture of a star field in there if you wanted to, I suppose. That might be the easiest way to do this. And so, with this picture set to black, what I'm going to be doing here is drawing some things on this. Now, we've seen how to load an image into this, but we haven't seen how to actually draw on this. And so that's the first thing I think I want to tell you about. And I want to go through the variables in the program and then go through what we do in form load and what we have to do for drawing. You can draw on many objects in Visual Basic. The picture box is one of those objects you can draw in. So let's go to the code. And again, we have our basic stuff at the top. Our variables. I've defined a few variables here. And the variables I've defined are, first of all, a pen. Okay, this is my pen. All right. I'm going to have to get rid of that and go back again here. All right, and I've defined a solid brush as solid brush, and this is one of these is used in drawing open figures without any fill in the center of them, just a line around it, you know. And the other one is drawn a solid figure, which is basically a filled object. And this variable right here I can use to define the width of the line around one of those open figures. G is a graphics object. So I've set up my graphics objects here, and generally you don't do it this way. You don't know ahead of time. You just start working on the program through the logic, and then you add in your stuff as you go. So let's see. Here's color. You've worked with color variables before. Color 1 and color 2 for the second spaceship, if you want to call it that. We're going to use a simple shape. We're going to use an ellipse for a spaceship. And then the only thing we need to do to keep track of where our spaceship is know its x and y coordinate. So there's the x and y coordinate of one spaceship, and here is the filled-in spaceship. So I did one open circle, open circle and one filled in. So I have an x and a y there. Okay. Now let's come down to the form load. The form load procedure basically sets up all of this stuff where we want it. The picture screen has a width to it. Okay, and I'm going to use that width. In my first open ship, I'm going to set up at 1/4 the screen width and 1/4 the screen height. So if we're looking at the whole screen here, a 1/4 width and a 1/4 height would be somewhere probably about in this area of the whole screen that we're looking at here, the whole movie that you're looking at. And the second one, notice I'm doing half. And so halfway across would be right here. So the other one's going to be set up probably somewhere in this region on the whole screen. Okay. I set the two colors a little different. This one I set to kind of a gray, and this one I set to kind of a yellow, I think. But they're really hard to tell against that black background. There's not much difference between this one and this one, you'll see. And also another problem is this is a line, so you really probably can't see the fact that it's gray and this one's yellow. But it's not a true yellow because the black is shining through. I set a line width. Okay. Now, this next part's the important part. I have to add this thing in there. I have to add a handler. A handler hooks up the paint routine that I'm writing. And to do graphics, to paint something, to make it work, the paint routine is called every time the screen is refreshed or every time the screen is built, the first time it comes up. The paint routine will be called. And so when this paint routine is called, anything in here, anything in the paint routine for the object you're talking about will be repainted. Now it wipes the object clear, which has good advantages and not so good things. One thing is we've had to skip the Etch-a-Sketch because it requires you, I mean, when it wipes it clear, you can't keep a line going unless you use arrays, and we haven't had those yet, or some way of storing the points. So we're just going to go ahead and do the space one first, and then when we learn arrays, we'll change that, which at this rate might be next year. At any rate, the graphics object I set up now, when the paint is set up, it has a systems event, and in the systems event there is the graphics, and to set up a local graphics object you have to call it from those events, and that creates a local version basically. Then I set up my brush. You remember I declared a brush up there, so I set up a brush as a new solid brush, and I can put a color in here, and this gives me the way, this allows me to put the color in the brush. And then I paint my filled in ellipse, which is, by the way, at the center, and I make it a width of 10 and a height of 10. Of course, those could be variables too. I could choose different sizes for my ship, make my ship grow and shrink if I wanted to. But anyways, these are the filled in. This is the variable one. This is the one that's about halfway. That's this one right here. It's going to be set up at these coordinates, and remember we set those coordinates ahead of time, and this is when it gets drawn down in here. Then I set up my pen. I created it up there earlier, dimmed it, and now it's a new pen, and I can set the color and I can set the line width in the pen. And so I've set its color and line width. And I think the reason why we're not seeing yellow is I didn't make color 2 there. I'll have to change that before we run it. Okay. And then I do a graphics draw ellipse, and it draws the open type one. Notice this was fill ellipse. Fill gets you the solid one, and draw gets you the open one. And again, I give it coordinates. I have to declare a pen here. The pen comes first, just like the brush came first up here. So I declare my pen, and then I say my coordinates, where I want it drawn, which by the way was up in this region, right up here on the screen. And then I say the type of line, the size of line. Okay, I'm sorry. I say the wrong line. I say the width and the length of it, or the width and the height as it's called. And that again gives me about the same size ship. Alright, so let's just look at that part first. The fact that it comes online, has these variables, it gets it drawn, and then we're going to take a look at where it goes. Now to get this paint routine, I had to double click, so that's why I left this in here for you to see. I double clicked on the pick space picture box, got the click event, went up to here, okay, and ended up getting my paint event from there. Alright, let's go back and see where that might be. So let's try running this thing first of all. And of course it goes off my screen, so I have to bring it over here so you can see. And you can see on the pick screen, look at this. Right up here. There, that's about, see, there's the open one. It's about the fourth of the way across and the fourth of the way down. So that's 1/4, 1/4. If you wanted to put something over here, that would be like 3/4 of the way across, 3/4 of the way down, right? So you just take the screen width, multiply it by 3, divide by 4, and you each direction of the screen height, multiply by 3, divide by 4 for the y coordinate, and you would get this location over here. You can put them in any fractional location. You can put them in 4 corners if you just think of the fractions needed to do that. You want to set it up relative to the screen all the time to start with, so if somebody shrinks your screen down, you won't have problems. Okay, and here's the solid one. And guess what? I didn't change the color like I said I was going to do. Let's go change the color. We'll just stop this right now. And come down here. Let's see, it's color, CL color 2, right? And where was that? The pen, do you want the open one or this one? Let's make this one up here, CL color 2. Okay, now I have to recompile. Save it. And let's see. And yes, the solid one in the center does look a little yellower, doesn't it? There it is. Down here. Definitely a little yellower. This one's a little grayer. You can choose whatever colors you choose or want for your ships. Alright, so now we've got that. What about movement? How do we get the things to move? Well, let's take a look. On the pick screen, if again I go up to the form, actually it's the form I want to capture. The pick screen has what we call, let's look at the pick screen for a second here. I'm going to get down to this category, pick screen, okay? And if I drop this box down, if you look down here, I don't have a key anything. I got H, I, see, A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. See, the key should be right in between these two, and it's not there. Instead, it has an event called preview key down right there. Now, preview key down is nice, but it doesn't work the way we want it to work. So I couldn't just do this on the pick screen itself like I've done in the past. We had to go into instead the form. And in the form, they have several. Let's look at those for a second here. I'm going to put it up here so we can see them all. All right, key down is the one we're using. That means when the key goes down, the event you're looking at happens. Key press is another one. It gives a different type of values for it. And then key up is very similar to key down, is when the key comes up, that's when you get the event happening. So you could actually choose any one of the three and just pick the appropriate values. But key down is the one I like because when you push key down, you can also get repeat working for you. Where key up, repeat doesn't work. Okay, it only happens when the key comes up, and of course it won't repeat then. So I wanted the repeat to work for me, but we have a problem with repeat. We'll check on that later. Okay, so we are in basically key down. In the key down, it has what we call here a systems window form key event, and the key event has some stuff connected to it, and one of the properties connected to the key event is a read-only property that gives us the code of the key that was pressed on the keyboard. Now that's helpful because we can drop that into a select case statement, as you see I've done, and by knowing what keys it is, and you can get these because these are what we call constants in the program under the keys. You type keys dot and the letter of the key, and once you type keys dot in your program, you'll get a drop down menu that will show you a whole lot of them. For example, I'm using the number pad to move my filled in circle, and I'm using the XY, a little block of keys over on the left side of the keyboard to move my open circle. So my filled in circle is going to get moved by the keypad, the 2, the 8, the 4, and the 6. And you'll see I've affected the directions it moves by just simply changing the coordinate by 5 or by subtracting 5 or adding 5. So basically key 2 is at the top of the number pad, and so I want it to increase the let's see, key 2 is at the bottom of the number pad. I've got to get my number pad straight. I want it to go down, so that would be increasing the Y direction of that particular one. So I increase them by 5, so it moves at a fairly rapid rate. 8 is at the top, and that would be decreasing the Y direction by 5. 4 is to the right, and to the left, and so I want to decrease the Y by the X by 4, and of course here I want to increase it by 4. Okay. Remember, Y decreases down. Y increases down. Yeah, Y increases down. So 0 is at the top. And X increases as we go to the right. So you got to remember that. Likewise, the same deal, only I'm doing 3s on this one just to try and show you a difference in speed. Okay, so this is jumps by 3s, and this is jumps by 5. So this guy moves a little faster than the other one. You could actually put a variable in there and set it with a drop-down box or something. Even a slider could be used to set in there, and I haven't shown you sliders yet. We'll look at sliders later. At any rate, you could set that to different speeds, so you can speed the ship up or slow the ship down when you're moving. Alright, so the important thing is once I've changed the coordinates, nothing's happened to the ship, of course. I've got to refresh that screen in order to get it to redraw the ship in a new position. And of course, it races the whole screen, races everything that's up there, and redraws. So, knowing that, let's see how that works. Getting up here. Alright, got my thing over there. I'm going to move the code, move it over here to this side so you can see the code also. Alright, so here we are. We're looking at the code. If I hit the 8 key on the number pad, notice my ship, my solid colored ship, should move up by groups of 5. And so if I hold it down, there it goes to the top. If I tap the 2 key, it should move down by jumps of 5. And if I hold it down, you should see it go down to the bottom of the screen like that. Right and left work the same way. Okay? Now let's go to the other side of the keyboard. If I use the D key, I should get it to move here. A little slower, isn't it? Let's just tap it. See? Smaller jumps. Going up, going down. And the appropriate keys were used. Alright? We're going to take on the idea of firing these ships at a later time. Now I'm going to show you one thing that doesn't happen here. I'm going to hold down the D key, and just about, I'm going to hold down the 4 key right about now. Oh, interesting, isn't it? It stopped the other one. Yeah, that's because we're working on a standard thread here, one thread. To get them to both move, we have to understand thread programming, which is a little bit deep for us to cover right at this point. So, right now, the only way you're going to get it to work is if you actually just kind of, when somebody starts, so you can hold yours down. And as soon as you see yours is stopped, let up and hold down, and that stops them. Or you can just all tap. Works that way. Alright, I'd like you to create something similar to this. Maybe a star background would be nice. Loading a picture in there ahead of time. You know how to do that from the previous assignment. And then add 2 ships, choose your colors, get them to move around with a set of keys. I'd suggest you use the number pad, and I'd suggest you use something on the far left of the keyboard so that the people that are playing are far apart. And we need to reserve other keys for doing other things. For example, firing, which is the next thing we're going to go into. So I'd like you to create something of this sort to work. And if you want to add a 3rd ship, put a set of keys in the middle someplace, halfway between those two, so a 3rd person perhaps can do it. Okay? Sounds good.